From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as two generations of comic book readers come together to discuss a single character or event that shaped pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Side Show presents Then and Now with Susan and Kitty. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Susan.
And this is Kitty.
How do you define something that is undefinable? You look at the people, places, and things that make a person tick. Oddly enough, the character we are describing is the very same one who taught us that idea. Batman has been the quintessential pop culture icon for the past 80 years, so much so that he has become a modern myth of our time, and everyone wants to contribute to that myth, including us. Coming to you from the Sideshow Studios in Southern California, this is Batman, Then and Now.
Batman. Batman. I'm Batman. We are not Batman.
Neither of us are Batman.
Neither of us are Batman.
Though we do like to pretend we're Batman a lot.
We could be the next Batman.
That's true. We don't know. Non-traditional casting, am I right? Batman is played by two women.
In a trench coat.
Yes.
Okay. To get this back on track. First of all, yes. Batman. I think we would be wasting some of our time to sit here and just discuss what makes Batman Batman. I mean, like...
No. I feel like that we all know what makes Batman Batman. In fact, out of every superhero that exists, most people like Batman, regardless of any other affiliations you might have. Most people are a fan of Batman. So I don't think we need
to... And they know the origin story, so we don't need to go that far back.
Right.
But I think it's important to talk about in the way that, especially for the now section of this, in the way that Batman has become... He's become like a Greek myth in modern day. So like in 1,000 years or so, they're going to be dissecting our myths of Batman and his epic struggles against these villains and his 12 labors and all these things.
God.
But he is such a monolithic part of pop culture. I think the bat symbol is so iconic that you could know nothing about the comics and still think that's Batman.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do we begin to talk about a character that is so pervasive in our culture?
Well, much like with our Superman Then and Now podcast, I will be focusing my then on what I know, specifically because obviously I not obviously, I could be vampire, but like I'm not 80 years old. I did not read Batman from the beginning. But I have read Batman the longest of any comic book character I've read.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that till we started doing research for this podcast. But no, I'm mostly going to be covering the Batman that I know, mostly starting with Frank Miller and The Dark Knight Returns. Because that's the era in which I read Batman. That's the then to me. Mm-hmm. I think that it goes akin to what you have at as the now, because I'm talking about, I read a lot of side stories. Mm-hmm. I never necessarily read the main continuity. And sometimes the side stories are the stories that become a little bit more mythical, if you will.
Yeah,
definitely. Like when we even have like a side story like Batman Noel, where he's literally put into the Christmas Carol story. Good job, Brian Ezra. Oh no, that was just Lee, right? That was just Lee Bermejo. Anyway, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But both of those two are in the now for Batman as well.
And they're in the then also because they did that amazing Joker book. Back in the day. That was only like 10 years ago, but that's crazy. But yeah, so for me, we all know the origin. We know the things about Batman, the opera, and what happened that night in the alley, and the loss of the parents and the training. And
I mean, we even have it in a Lego. We get like jokes about Batman in a Lego movie.
I know there is a Lego Batman movie.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. By the way,
I know it's really fun.
Lobster Thermidor. Uh-huh. So for the now, this is. Listeners, you may or may not know this. This is a big year for the Bat. This is Batman's 80th anniversary. The 80th anniversary of publication will take place on March 30th, I believe.
So we're right before.
We're just right before his 80th anniversary. And so I want to talk about the ways in which the Batman mythos has branched into like the fact that we're getting a Joker origin movie and Harley Quinn's getting her own animated series, but we're doing a prequel about Alfred, but we did a prequel about Batman. And so there's a lot going on.
Totally.
Because with a character this big, he has a universe surrounding him. And what is DC Comics doing to acknowledge this 80th anniversary? It's a lot. But it's
Release the bats.
Yes, more on that later. But to me, also with these Greek myth comparisons, Batman is also like the Hamlet of DC Comics, where we know his MO, but there are so many different ways you can approach it. There are so many different characters surrounding it. Everyone wants to tell the story from Ophelia's point of view, or we got Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. But so it's Batman's world and side characters, but he remains the same. And so many actors want to take on the Bat because they want to get into that space of what makes Batman Batman. And so many writers and artists want to take their crack at writing that internal monologue, getting those feelings, getting in touch with this huge piece of culture. And I totally understand it. Like if someone offered you the chance to play Batman, to just add a little bit to that.
Oh yeah, I totally would do it. I would totally do it. If someone was
Batman.
if someone was like, "Hey, can you write Batman for a one shot?" I'd be like, "Oh my god, yes."
Who doesn't want to try to take a swing at crafting a piece of that myth?
Absolutely.
So I think we should. You want to jump to your stuff?
Well, I mean, my stuff is the same type of thing. It's those side stories that expand on Batman, because at a certain point you just understand who Batman is. You don't need his origin written 1,000 times. And it is more of an expansion of his reality, more so than anything else. And I love the stories where it's about how Bruce Wayne is actually the mask and not necessarily, because Batman is his true self. And in order to constantly be able to visit his true self of Batman, he has to be Bruce Wayne. And so it's almost more difficult for him to take on that role than it is for him to, put on a batsuit every night and answer the call of Gotham. So when I approach Batman, I always think of it that way, where you take Batman not that you don't take him seriously, but you take him as the man, and then the actual fake persona is the Bruce Wayne persona.
Bruce Wayne is the side gig for
right.
Sometimes he moonlights as a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the characters of Alfred Pennyworth who very much would want Bruce to be Bruce all the time, but get it, And I find it interesting to look at Batman from the outside in, from the characters who surround him, because when you take a character like Hush, and that type of character who wants to take him down mentally, those to me are the more interesting villains who try to break him down from the inside, which is kind of what we all try to do when we watch a Batman movie, when we read a Batman comic. We're always trying to dissect what makes him tick. And sometimes, Hugo Strange literally wants to dissect people. So yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is the fact that when we talk about Batman and we talk about his 80-year legacy, what we're really referring to is this duality of nature, something that we all can kind of, understand. We all understand at our core what it's like to have to pretend for some reason. Even the best of times require a little bit of presentation, and Batman knows how to do that on so many different levels. And so to me, that's Batman in the then.
Yeah. I like how you touched upon the fact that characters in the periphery of his life, including the villains, all present a different type of challenge for him because he is such a complex character.
Yeah, totally.
And so in the now, minor spoilers to follow for the wedding of Batman and Catwoman, that was a big storyline they hyped up last year that didn't happen. Comic book weddings, man. I mean, Harley and Ivy did get married in Injustice. They had a fun little time there. But for a while, DC was hyping. This was Batman number 50, and this is still the Tom King run. So this was kind of the midpoint. And so it was this big deal that Batman and Catwoman are going to get married, and they sent out save the date cards to comic book stores. This was a cultural thing that they wanted to happen. Yeah. And unfortunately, spoilers leaked online a couple days before the book went up in stores, just because of the way that books solicit to the stores.
And reviewers and stuff. Yeah.
And reviewers. But the spoiler is Selena, at some point in the story, realizes that in marrying Bruce, she will, because she's marrying Bruce, it's not like I'm marrying Batman necessarily, because they love each other as
Bruce
themselves,
and Selena,
as Bruce and Selena. She realizes that marrying Bruce will make him happy, and that happiness would destroy Batman, and she feels that she can't bring herself to destroy Batman. So she won't let herself make him happy, because in a way, Bruce does need that conflict. He needs the reason that he has to go put on the bat suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or she didn't
she
didn't want to take away the reason that, like,
yeah, because his true self is Batman. You can't take away your spouse's reason for like being who they are.
Yeah. So that was even in these moments where you're like, they're not really going to get married. Like, are they going to do such a big change to Batman? Like,
oh no, I was like, they're never gonna get married. Because also, by the way, like, that's a great excuse, Selena, but like, you can't be married to him either.
Yeah,
like Catwoman can't exist that way either. But this isn't a Catwoman podcast, so I'm not gonna talk about Catwoman
next time.
Well, maybe.
But so yeah, and then of course, as the issue progresses, you get hints that maybe her realization of this fact was kind of orchestrated by some of the greatest villains in Batman's life. But also, that means the villains then also realized, if he's happy, is that going to be the end of Batman?
It's so funny because you rarely come across a hero that the villains want the hero to exist.
Yeah.
Like, all of Batman's villains need him. Like,
they are products of his presence.
Right. And none of the, like, you have all these villains from other even DC properties that actively want, like you have Sinestro, who wants to take down the Green Lantern Corps. He wants there to be no more Green Lantern Corps. Like he wants them to disappear. Lex Luthor wants there to not be a Superman because he doesn't believe that anyone should have that type of power except himself. And so you have these villains that want to take down their hero, but the Bat villains don't want to do that. They want Batman to exist. Like the Joker,
that was the whole crux of the Emperor Joker storyline. How Superman defeated him was, you can't kill Batman because then you don't exist. You as the Joker can't be the Joker.
And then
Batman.
They borrowed that for the Dark Knight. We're like we're gonna be doing this forever because like I can't kill you. Or you can't kill me because of your moral code, and I can't kill you because you're just too much fun. Like they can't exist without each other. And the same thing is true for, like, pull up a rogue, any of the rogues, and they can't exist without Batman. Even when you get down to like Clayface and Killer Croc.
Even thinking of like Poison Ivy.
Yeah,
I mean, she probably doesn't care too much for humans in general, but even still with Poison Ivy.
But the thing is, if there's no one opposing her, then she's no longer a villain.
Right.
Because she's just doing weird stuff with plants. I'm serious. But if you think about it, that's a strange anomaly among, like, that makes Batman stand out among the other heroes in his world.
Which is where we then get a challenge with another one of these moments with everybody adapting their own version of the Batman story. We get Gotham. Yeah. Gotham on Fox took on the Herculean task of creating a world where Bruce Wayne is still a child, but his villains are there because they need antagonists, and they're not all there in the same form as they've always been. I mean, you see a young Selena Kyle growing up, and then you see Pepper Ivy had a weird storyline.
Though I did really enjoy how they incorporated the Riddler.
Yes,
the Riddler being like working at the Gotham PD and everything. Like that was cool.
And then we're gonna get to see kind of the true evolution of the Penguin in the final season, which they're headed for the final season, which promises that we will see Batman become Batman. We'll see the younger. I don't think he'll be a full adult, but I think they are aging him up a little bit. Bruce Wayne.
The thing with kids is that they grow up, right? Right. So, like, the actor who's played him does look like an adult now. I mean, granted, I think he's still only 15, but he, like, looks a lot older.
Yeah, and I'm
so sorry if you're older than 15.
We'll check our math after this podcast.
IMDb this right now.
But yeah, and so that was initially when it was presented, people were like, "Oh, that's really cool," because we've also got the whole CW, the Arrowverse, which is also set to introduce Batwoman, and they've stated that Batman has been missing now for several years, so we're gonna have a universe where Batman's gone missing. But people were like, "Is this gonna work? Is Gotham gonna work?" Because the villains can't be there without Batman. He's 18. Thank you, producer.
Yeah, okay. He's 18. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it too.
But
oh my God, you were born in 2001. Oh, his birthday just happened. Happy birthday, David.
Batman, David.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, so we get the challenge where it's like, yeah, everybody's done their version of the adult Batman, but what happens when we do the child Batman? And that world, it's so bizarre to see, and it's cool because I mean they've got Scarecrow and they've introduced a version of Bane, and I know they're doing a Joker storyline. I've been loosely following it, and I don't quite understand it.
I don't understand it either.
But that's the other thing is people try to demystify the Joker's origin. But so that also leads into
I like the Joker just showing up personally.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need an origin for me.
Yeah. I mean some things it's not always a plot hole if you can't explain it. It's just part of the mystique of the story.
And if I just met someone like I don't
need to see their backstory.
I was like, I don't even need I don't necessarily have their backstory. Like when someone new gets hired in your office, like you don't know everything about them right there, and
you just move on from there.
Yeah. So I don't need to know the Joker's origin. But sorry, I got sidetracked.
You are going to get to learn the origin of a one Alfred Pennyworth.
I know.
The Epix Network is taking on that challenge, which I, to their credit, I don't think has been done before. I know they joked about it in the Teen Titans. They joke about it in the Teen Titans Go movie.
They also joke about it in the Batman Lego movie. Like that he has some sort of origin anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, they joke that Alfred's going to get a movie before Robin gets a movie.
Oh, they didn't make that joke.
Okay, yeah. So they joke that. But here we are, and Jack Bannon is going to be playing a young Alfred, and it's set in London, I think. I don't remember the era, but I
kind of want it to be like akin to Agent Carter.
And that's what it seems like they're setting up for, because I know they've cast a couple of like ruthless women who are like running this like dominatrix like bracket.
Is it going to be like Sherlock?
It might be. And so they haven't revealed a lot of plot details. They've only revealed some casting stuff. Mm-hmm. But that is
which you can hear updates on our Alexa skill.
Yes. But that is going to be fascinating too once they start like revealing more about the production of that series, because it's not an origin story most people are clamoring for.
Right. But it's interesting.
And it's a character who doesn't necessarily he existed before Batman.
Right.
And he will continue to exist with Batman, and so it'll be really cool to see if they can manage to do that. And then I'm not going to go into depth because these are also in production, but not a whole lot of details. We've got a Joker origin film with Joaquin Phoenix, and then we're getting a Harley Quinn animated series. So it's like, hang out with Batman, and you may well enough get your own show.
When you wind up with so that stuff that's like in shows and movies and television that's for mass production. I mean, not that comic books aren't for mass production, but it's a little bit more of a niche audience. A lot of them wind up with their own solo series as well. Catwoman has her own solo series.
Poison Ivy had a couple of minis.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was the Gotham City Sirens like a few years ago. That's the three of them. They've had like a Batman Rogues. Even like, if you think about it, the Suicide Squad, all of those are Batman villains.
And Harley Quinn has her own series. And
Nightwing.
Old woman Harley is now a thing.
Yeah, Nightwing spun off from Batman. You had Red Hood and the Outlaws for a while with
Batman
the new Batman Beyond.
Super Sons.
Oh my God, there's so many. So what we're trying to say is like the Batman Gotham verse is vast and unexplainable in a then and now podcast, especially with 80 years of history. But like, I think that the point that what we're trying to talk about here is that like everyone's take on Batman is unique. Even when you boil it, like not even just the characters within his own story, but like when you read Batman, it's a little bit different from when I read Batman, from someone else reading Batman. If you pick up something like, if you pick up like Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, that is a completely different Batman story than The Long Halloween, the completely different story than Hush. Like all of these Batman stories, while they're contained and while they're iconic in their own right, you're not going to get the same exact story, because he's a detective and he's kind of a chameleon and he's the one with the fail safes for all the Justice League.
And everyone who reads it either puts themselves behind the mask just for a little time or puts their ideas of what's behind the mask in their own head.
Absolutely.
And so everybody interprets him differently, just like we have. I mean, that's why we still have new Batman stories that are being told. And
Right.
and even if it's like, hey, I hadn't considered a Alfred Pennyworth prequel series, that's a rich ground of information to be explored, and we'll find out about this man who influenced Batman, and then we'll find out about Batman as a child, or why Batman couldn't get married to Selena Kyle, and it's
Right.
just all these bizarre. And then I mean, we've even got what DC took one step further with the Black Label comics. There was Batman Damned, and that's a supernatural. It's a bi-monthly, so it's every other month, I believe. Bi-monthly can either be twice a month
or every other month. I
but
know.
I'm pretty sure it's every other month.
It is definitely every other month.
But that's a supernatural horror story where Batman wakes up one day and the Joker's been murdered, and he needs to find out who, and he's not sure if it was him or not. Like, who finally got to the Joker? And we've had stories where the Joker got murdered. I mean, the Injustice universe spun out because Superman murdered the Joker and stuff. And so we do get to see then what happens also when certain aspects of that that core Batman mythos
it's like
are
disrupted.
taken away.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just so fascinating. And then we've also got a void to fill with the departure of Batfleck.
Yeah.
And so everyone's March Madness brackets and what have you are like, who's going to be the new Batman? Is it me? Is it you? Is it like you're going to wake up one day and find out that you're the new Batman? It's just like, who? Like, everybody, more so than most other casting news.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to know who's going to be the next person to take that cowl out for a spin. Which I think
the best part is
fascinating.
everybody's going to have crazy opinions on it, no matter who it is, whoever it is. It's going to be both loved and hated at the same time, because we all have our own version of Batman who exists in our head.
Yeah.
And it's usually voiced by Kevin Conroy in my head. But Batman's one of those eternal characters that you have your idea of him, and you started this podcast saying he's mythical. Yeah. And he is, because no matter anything you say about him, it's true. And you
could even make up a rumor about Batman and you're like, probably.
Anything you say about him could be true. But he transcends what his intention was. It was just supposed to be like a little fun comic, like Detective Comics number 26, like 26, 27. I do this every time. The last time we did a Batman, the Detectives podcast. The Detectives podcast, I did the same thing. Producer, 26 or 27. Anyway.
Yeah, which first Detective Comics Batman.
Oh my gosh.
We should pull these numbers before we start.
We should always do that. I can't ever do it. What I'm saying is that that's supposed to be like a fun little random comic, side character, not even a full storyline. And
fast forward to, I forgot to write down the release date, but it's later this month, is Detective Comics number 1000.
Number 1000.
DC Comics is putting out Detective Comics number 1000, and we just had Action Comics number 1000, and that was a pretty big deal for Superman. But I think more so, this Batman one is going to be a huge deal. I mean, DC is celebrating it. They're launching the celebration at South by Southwest.
That means it's right now.
Which is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this was my personal laugh. What do you get the man who has everything? Maybe 1.5 million bats. DC announced that they were going to host an event in which 1.5 27 Detective Comics 27.
It's a multiple of 3. That's how I'll remember it.
There we go.
23.
DC Comics was going to host an event in Austin, Texas, wherein 1.5 million bats would fly over the Congress Bridge in Austin. This news got misreported very quickly.
I love it.
The story quickly became DC is going to release these bats instead of just happening to observe a natural migration that happens in Texas every year.
God.
And so for a hot afternoon, the internet thought that DC Comics, for Batman's 80th birthday, was just going to release
the bats.
But again, how do you celebrate this character who, first of all, is a billionaire, so he can probably take care of himself? Just get him bats. But for real, they are doing a huge celebration. For that, a lot of comic book stores are actually hosting midnight release parties, so check with your local store if you're super into getting your hands on this as soon as possible. It's going to be a 96-page comic issue, which is almost the size of a trade paperback.
Yeah.
For those who don't quite know, the average floppy has 22 pages of story. So they're releasing special Detective Comics hardcovers. WonderCon in Southern California is hosting a Happy Birthday Batman panel in a couple of weeks. And they said that the celebration is going to continue through the whole year. I mean, for those of you who also keep on top of holidays at your comic book store, we got Free Comic Book Day coming up, but Batman Day is always in September, and this year it's on September 21st. DC always will send out like free
Why do
issues.
they skip his birthday? Because in the comics, Bruce Wayne's birthday is like February 19th. And they like always skip his birthday. And it always, I really have a question. If anybody can't answer that, please email us. Because I really would like to know the answer to that. Because like canon, his birthday is like February 19th.
And I feel like they did address his birthday recently in one of the issues, but it was part of the storyline from Tom King. But
I can't ever wrap my head around like, why is Batman Day in September when he has a birthday? I'm just pointing that out, guys. Pointing that out.
Yeah, and I mean for DC Comics, Detective Comics, that is the bread and butter of DC. They've got 14 normal variants, and then there's over 30 retailer exclusive variants. I mean, every comic book store that wants one is getting like they're doing a variant, and it is like a party, and you're invited. And it's just, and writers like Paul Dini and Warren Ellis, Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis, Scott Snyder, and more, Jeff Johns, they're all writing some part of this Detective Comics 1000, which is being defined by DC as the incredible future of Batman. It's just, it's an amalgam of everything they've done so far. I mean, and this is Detective Comics. This isn't even counting the titles of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
This is Detective Comics number 1000. Like,
that's
this is
crazy,
huge for DC. And so we are living in Batman's year, and it's just, it'll be interesting to see how they celebrate that all throughout the year, because he really is just a character who, I mean, any random Tuesday could be Batman Day and everyone would be all in.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't come and go in waves. Like, even when some of these characters have their movie and it's like, oh, we're gonna bump Aquaman to the forefront really fast, but it's just, Batman's always there. Batman is eternal.
Well, that was the when I worked at a comic store, it was just everybody reads Batman. It was that, like, literally when we were doing polls, like, everybody reads Batman.
I think The Long Halloween was one of the most recommended books that we always stocked.
Speaking of which, my then recommendations include The Long Halloween, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Hush, there's 2 parts to Hush. I also didn't even touch on the fact that, like, Huntress comes from the Batman universe, and read the Cry for Blood storyline if you want a nice Huntress origin story before she drops into the DC cinematic universe in the Birds of Prey movie. So, like, all this stuff comes from Batman, because even if you look at the Birds of Prey, like, Harley's origin is directly related to Batman, and so is Huntress's. And Black Canary's not so much, but then also you have Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, is directly related to Batman in the Batman verse. So all these different things come directly from Batman.
Cousin Kate Kane is taking up the CW.
Yeah. There you go. And there you go. So for the then, I recommend picking up Batman The Long Halloween. And then you'll probably go into the other Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale Batman titles. Dark Knight Returns.
It's just,
Hush. Parts 1 and 2. And then Heart of Hush. Those are my favorites, my personal favorites. And then, anything Scott Snyder wrote.
I was going to say Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo is definitely for a lot of the
New 52 stuff. Now.
Court of Owls. Death. Is it Death of the Family?
Death
is
of
the newer one?
Yeah, Death of the Family. The other one's Death in the Family.
And that's where viewers called in, or readers called in. And
that's where Jason Todd dies.
Jason Todd died. And,
but Death of the Family is actually like really...
That's the one with the Joker
with the face is cut off and then sewn back on.
Yes.
And then he sews his face onto all the other Bat family's faces.
Yes.
Anyway, that's a really terrifying panel, but you should definitely read it.
Yes. And I mean, I could recommend any number of things for the now too, but you could also just close your eyes, throw a dart, and like you'll probably land on a Batman something. Yeah. You can watch any number of these shows, keep your eyes peeled for who
Batman
will
casting news.
Yeah, Batman casting news. We'll all be waiting with bated breath. And of course, we've got Justice League, and if you're looking for a place to just jump in, I mean, check out what they're
Batman 1000. That's a great place
Detective
to jump
Comics
in.
1000.
Sorry,
yeah. Check out.
We call it Detective Comics. It's Batman now. But yeah, check it out.
Yeah, just see what your store is doing for Free Comic Book Day. See what they're doing for the Detective Comics release party. See what they're doing for Batman Day. Just get involved. You could change the channel and a Batman movie will be playing.
I mean, also, if you subscribe to DC Universe, all of Batman the Animated Series is on there now.
That is true.
And
it's didn't they like HD redo it? So that's there's your now.
And then follow like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill and like because they're super funny on social media in terms of like if you've been a fan of Batman the Animated Series, like they're nothing like the two of them.
Yeah. So I mean, just close your eyes and point, and somewhere there will be a Batman for you. There will be your perfect Batman somewhere, and it. I just can't wait to see. I mean, like once you're over the hump of DC Comics or Detective Comics 1000, like it's like where do you go? And that's just going to be a really cool new age for Batman.
Yeah.
So yeah, just close your eyes, point, and find a Batman. It might be you.
He goes by many names. His villains need him to exist. Change the man, change the myth, and all our reasons why Batman to this day is the Knight. How do you define something undefinable? The answer is Batman. This has been Batman, Then and Now. Do you enjoy listening to Then and Now? We are proud to bring you pop culture content completely ad-free, but that doesn't mean we don't need your support to help us keep going. Please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting platform and help spread the word about our podcast. We welcome fan feedback. Email us at podcast@sideshow.com with your thoughts and suggestions for how we can make our shows even better. Please tune in for our other pop culture podcasts. See if your fan favorites make the cut in the Geek Culture Countdown, a bi-weekly podcast featuring pop culture top 10 lists. Hear exclusive interviews with celebrities and pop culture industry leaders as they let their geek side show in Look Who Showed Up. Then get all the latest pop culture news with our daily briefing, a 2-minute breakdown of the biggest geek headlines perfect for your Alexa or Google News briefings. We wouldn't exist without your continued support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.